Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Fallen London. We are currently doing the Ballad of Johnny Croak, but right at the start here I'm just going to point out that the Whitsun event is here in Fallen London, where you can acquire an egg, and you can also augment it and hatch it and make it nice. There are things on the Fallen London Reddit and things. If you want to know what you get for what, that is the place to go. But without further ado, let's get on with the secrets of Johnny Croak. The forewoman gave you the name of one of her Neddy men. A hulking brute with too few eyebrows and too many misspelled tattoos. But every morning, before he leaves for work, he kisses his mother on the forehead and promises to come home safe. You can follow him without trouble as he preambulates Wolfstack docks in search of shriekers and moves along vagrants in the gutters of Ladybones Road. He is not the most observant of fellows. After all, who'd be so foolhardy as to attack a Neddy man? His inattention leaves you free to look out for Johnny Croak. We have two options here, which is rather strange. We can observe Johnny Croak ambushing the Neddy man. You'll finally discover how he's able to murder so thoroughly that his victims never return. Things may go badly if you fail. Ensure your worldly affairs are in order. Or we can let Johnny Croak murder you. He'll take the Neddy man's place. The urchin surely isn't really capable of killing people permanently, and you'll prove it, empirically. Perhaps this will work fantastically, or perhaps this will prove to be a terrible, terrible idea. Ensure your worldly affairs are in order. Well, since we don't have much of a choice here, I fancy not taking the place of a Neddy man. So we have a 55% chance, which is probably the lowest chance I've ever had in a exceptional story, apart from the kitchen where I just constantly had low. Let's spend a hastily scribbled note to ensure a second chance here, and hopefully we'll pass it first time. We succeeded, wonderful. You follow the Neddy man for several days, observing from alleyways and rooftops. No sign of the assassin. Finally, on a secluded street near Wolfstack docks, a small, shadowy figure detaches from a wall. Its footfall matched the Neddy man's own. The assassin doesn't appear to have spotted you. The figure raises a crossbow. A bolt hits the Neddy man in the back and shatters. The big fellow topples like a felled oak with surprising strength. The urchin grabs him by the leg and drags him into a nearby alley. You follow, leaping between rooftops, silent as a cat. With some difficulty, the urchin loads his prey into a wheelbarrow, covers it with a tarpaulin, and wheels it towards the docks. How curious. A grizzled old captain waits at the docks, consulting a pocket watch. Just off the dock behind him, a steamship rolls gently in the waves. "Sorry I'm late," says Johnny Croak, stopping his body-laden wheelbarrow at the gangplank. "Day or two makes no difference," says the captain. "It's a roundabout journey to Wisdom. We're stopping at a dozen ports along the way. The journey could take half a year if we have bad storm luck." "Just don't let him get off the boat before Wisdom," says Johnny. He hands over a jingling pouch of coins, which the captain counts carefully and then pockets. A pair of sailors begin to roll the wheelbarrow aboard their ship. So we can either rescue the Neddy man. So this is how Johnny Croak gets rid of his victims. Still, the man doesn't deserve to spend half a year at sea. Or we can watch the boat set sail. The Neddy man probably deserves his fate. He is, after all, a Neddy man. Yeah, I'm gonna watch the boat set sail. The Neddy men have got in my way a few times, and they have big sticks, and they do like to beat people down. So, his fate's sealed. I'm sure his mother will be fine. You watch from the shadows as the wheelbarrow is rolled below deck. The gangplank is hoisted up and the steamship pulls away from the dock. This would be the secret of Johnny Croak's permanent assassinations. It's easier to come back from the dead than it is to come back from Z. You should return to Watchmaker's Hill and decide whether or not to tell the forewoman. And we gained a favours at the dock, which gives me 7, which means I can finally upgrade my connections. Okay, so back to Watchmaker's Hill. Feels kind of weird unless I actually travel to Watchmaker's Hill. Let's go. Don't have to. It's a card on all screens, but it just felt wrong. Here we go, returning to the forewoman. The forewoman is waiting for you in her mossy garden, sitting at a table with a teapot and crockery. She has lit a cluster of candles for warmth. Jasper and Frank are standing on either side of her, impassive. What have you discovered? She asks, pouring you a hot cup of tea. Part of me wants to side with the forewoman because I feel it's the option that most people wouldn't take. So I think I'm going to tell her. Tell her the secret of how Johnny permanently kills people. She's sure to spread your findings far and wide. It'll be catastrophic for Johnny's notoriety and harm the status he enjoys among the urchin gangs. Or we could keep it a secret. Keep your cards close for now. You don't trust her yet, but you'll come to play along as her ally. You know what? No, let's do it. I think the urchins are going to hate me at the end of this, but I'm sure it'll be fine. Of course, she says with deep satisfaction. It makes perfect sense. A fast-acting, sorific, a few coins slipped to a Z-captain. She laughs, mirthlessly. And to think, I was starting to think we faced an existential threat. Hopefully this means my vanished colleagues will make their way home sooner or later. A sip of tea as she contemplates your discovery. All that remains, then, is to capture Mr. Croak. Many of my workers have started to think he's some kind of symbol. It really is most annoying. Hopefully his arrest will put paid to that. She gazes at you thoughtfully. Ideally, we should apprehend him in as public a manner as possible. Do you think you could trap him down and persuade him to trust you? Then we can lure him into a trap. And now I get to pretend to be his friend, and then maybe realise that his is the better cause and join him right at the end. It's usually what happens. A frog hunt. Your next step is to find Johnny Croak, wherever he might be. It's a daunting task. The lad is as slippery as his frogs. How do you trap him down? Oh, we can do a bargain with the Raggedy Men. You know that Croak likes to stick to the rooftops. Not much passes up there that the Raggedy Men don't see. They'll want tribute, though, for their trouble. So we can 15 bottles of moral ways. We can do that, or we can do old-fashioned detective work. You'll find him by asking sharp questions of sharp people and wearing your shoe leather thin, trapezing across the four corners of this great city. Or we can offer to hire him if we had favour with criminals, but we do not. I think I'm going to do a bargain with the Raggedy Men. After speaking to a few Raggedy Men and judiciously distributing a few bottles of Moral Way's finest, as gifts, of course, one of them spills what he knows. Johnny is rumoured to make his home in a long-disused windmill, deep in Bugsby's marshes. The Raggedy Men indicate he's been seen heading there recently. Best move sharpish. Your journey out there is beset by mild peril. Grasping mud that almost swallows your boots, bogs thick as curdled milk that descends without warning, brambles with thorns like knives. When you finally arrive, you're half expecting disappointment, just to compound an already difficult day. But you're wrong. You knock on the door and a large crossbow appears. Behind it, a tussle-haired urchin in an oversized grey topcoat is scowling at you. A vibrant little frog is perched on his head. I wondered when you'd find me, he scowls. Crossbow doesn't waver. What do you want? God knows how we're going to make him trust us. The boy eyes you suspiciously, never lowering the crossbow. Your attempts at introduction are met with monosyllabic responses. Basically grunts. Over his shoulder, you can see the squalor he's been living in. Johnny has established a home of sorts in the shell of a decaying windmill. There are colourful books arranged on sagging, rotted bookshelves, racks of flasks and beakers, tins, candle stubs, a sad little mattress. Most of all, there are frogs. The number of frogs cannot be overstated. Frogs yellow as custard, and frogs blue as parrots. Frogs of strawberry red, frogs a purple peacock purple. Frogs pink and orange and pale as posies. Striped, mottled or spotted frogs, whose colours clash and swirl together in gaudy triumph. The effect is like staring upon a rainbow that has unravelled. Say what you have to say, then leave, says Johnny. He doesn't trust you enough to talk. How can you win him over? Okay, so we have a few options here. We can bond over mutual revolutionary sentiments. Put that with favours with the revolutionaries, obviously. You can talk to him all day about how to overthrow the masters, if he likes. We can bond over your shared love of inventive murder. You've spent your fair share of time getting rid of inconveniences, like people in the way of your schemes. I don't know when I got that. It was probably when I was doing Fiduci's Fight Club. We can discuss the practical applications of poisons, a topic on which he's immensely knowledgeable. He can't help but be drawn into a conversation. Or we can win him over with jokes and charm alone. Yes, the two of you were only recently engaged in a small-scale war. Wasn't it fun? We can do that, but I think we're going to bond over our shared love of inventive murder. Johnny listens, rapt as you tell him all the things you've done. The adventures, the last-minute escapes, the leaps across rooftops, the unlikely victories. He lowers his crossbow. His eyes shine with sudden respect. Come in. The ice, it seems, has been broken. There's no furniture, so you seat yourself on the least damp patch on the floor. You ask him why he's going after the employees of Mr. Fire's factories. Is it for pay or for principle? It's for frogs, he says, placing his new toad carefully within a cage. You know that new factories they're building in the marsh? It's right on top of a spawning ground. If they build it, it's goodbye tadpoles. He shakes his head, horrified. I couldn't let that happen. But what about workers' rights? Or striking a blow on behalf of the urchins? Johnny looks at you like you've spouted a second head. I don't care about that, he says simply. You've been invited into Johnny Croak's lair, above the tattered sails of the old windmill creek. Who would build a windmill in the Neath anyway? Johnny tells you it was constructed hastily, soon after the fall, and abandoned when the original owner realised there was no wind down here. Johnny is apparently satisfied that you're not here to try anything untoward. He's gone back to silently cataloguing his vials of poisons. Occasionally, he will pick up a frog, tickle its stomach, and call it a good, strong boy. So we can ask him about frogs. It's the only subject on which he seems to have words to spare. Or we can ask if he's entirely safe living out here. Marsh wolves prowl these parts. Sinkholes open without warning and can swallow a man whole. Sorrow spiders hatch in the web-shrouded trees. Let's ask him if he's entirely safe. Or let's start at the top and work our way down actually. Ask him about frogs. His eyes brighten. Did you know that in the last 4 years, 363 entirely new species of frogs have been discovered in Bugsby's marshes? 18 of them carried poisons that are completely new to science. Johnny is walking back and forth. His arm gestures grow more expansive as he warms to his subject. Frogs are very sensitive to even the slightest disruptions of their habitat. He shakes his head. The factory is being built right over the pond where all the frogs go to spawn, where most of the tadpoles of the marshes grow to adulthood. Once the factory is finished, there'll be nowhere for the spawning to take place. Who knows how many species will go extinct? Forever undiscovered. Their poisons uncatalogued. It doesn't bear thinking about. Oh. Okay, well now we'll ask him if he's entirely safe living out here. Johnny cocks his head, as though considering this for the first time. You just have to know when to run away, really. Really fast, he says. It helps to be light. Heavy things sink around here. And is he comfortable out here? The windmill's damp walls are bristling with mould. He seems to be sleeping on a mattress thin as a pancake. Wouldn't he be happier in London? Can't say the gutters are much comfier, says Johnny with a grimace. Oh, he has a valid point. So, we can ask him to leave the forewoman alone, or we can offer to help him put the forewoman on a boat. I think we'll ask him to leave her alone. You tell him that she's not like the others. She doesn't deserve to be put on a slow boat to the Sea of Lilies. I'm trying to send a message, says Johnny, that they can't interfere with amphibian territory, no matter who they are. He pauses. But I suppose it won't matter soon, once I take care of the marsh factory. Fine, I'll leave the foreman alone if it's so important to you. We can ask him about his plans for the marsh factory. He mentions something about taking care of the factory. What did he mean? Johnny looks you up and down. There's a place I need to go. It's deep in the marshes, he says, judiciously avoiding the question. Don't worry, I won't ambush you or nothing. It'd disturb the frogs. I can show you what I mean on the way back. Okay, we can follow him into the marshes. He packs his equipment, nets, vials, jam jars. Don't mind the insects. Your blood's good for them, he says cheerfully. Oof. As you push your way deeper into the marshes, Johnny comes alive. He hops from rock to rock across a stagnant pond, pointing out pale moths and spouting their Latin names. He's been stealing textbooks from the university since he was 6. He tells you which toadstools you can eat and which will make you die, or at least want to. He overturns a moss-coated rock and delights in the crawling things that wriggle beneath. At last you stop at a gluttonous, brown lake. Giant mushrooms tower on all sides, festooned by rows of sleeping bats. Here we are, says Johnny with satisfaction. This is my favourite place to find ghost jewel frogs. They're the ones I put in my crossbow bolts. A thimble of their venom will make you sleep for a week. Sounds like a good laudanum replacement. Buzzing, chirping, croaking, the shrieking of distant bats, the sound of the marsh mingle together into a symphony. A marsh wolf prowls in the reeds at the lake's edge, eyes gleaming. You and Johnny throw rocks at it until it lopes away. The ghost jewels are about the size of your thumbnail, says Johnny, stirring the mud with a stick. Bright orange to warn away predators, the colour of a campfire. So we can search for jewel frogs. We can always come back later if they don't find them today, says Johnny cheerfully. Catching frogs is a unpredictable art. Luckily I have foxfire candles. Aha! Pushing aside some reeds, you discover a gleaming assortment of tiny frogs, each the colour of a grimy topaz or burnt orange peel. One of them licks its eyes at you and ribbits. With gloved hands you lift a cluster of glittering frogs from the muck. Johnny coos delightedly, scooping them into a flask. On the way back to the windmill, he decides to take you on a circuitous detour. You follow as he scrambles up mudbanks and fights his way through brambles. There, he says finally, pointing across the marsh. A half-built factory looms on the horizon. A single chimney, tall as a sorcerer's tower, stabs accusingly at the distant ceiling. Ant-like figures scurry back and forth on the scaffolds. Building. A dirigible hangs above like a swollen moon. I thought I could put a stop to it by going after the forewoman and her cronies, says Johnny, but construction hasn't even slowed down. Don't worry, I have another plan. I always do. Help him extract poison from the ghost jewels. You don't lack for tools. Vials, flasks, beakers and jars cover every available surface that isn't already covered by frogs. You watch as Johnny gently squeezes the ghost jewel frogs and milks their venom into a glass cylinder. As he does this, he teaches you which frogs produce which poisons. Death, hallucinations, amnesia, you name it, he has a frog for it. Now you try, he says, handing you a pair of heavy gloves. As you carefully top up venom flasks with a pipette, he starts to outline his plans for the future. I found an anarchist who can supply me with a bomb, he says. In return, he wants someone permanently bumped off. I'm meeting him soon at his house in Vale Garden to discuss the particulars. Want to come? Why does he need a bomb? To blow up the Marsh factory, of course, he says. So before we rendezvous with the love-lorn anarchist, I think I will end this episode here. I'm trying to do these in shorter bursts, which makes them easier to listen to. About 20 minutes. Even it's 24 minutes. I'm terrible at this. But normally they're half an hour. But either way, thank you very much for watching. Please like, subscribe, let me know what you think. Your comments are greatly appreciated. And have fun in the White Sun event. And as always, I'll see you next time.